Welcome back to another episode of The Next Step, the podcast where we share real stories of resilience, adaptation, and overcoming major life challenges. I'm your host, Kevin Gray. I'm a bilateral amputee, and today's guest has been on a journey that started at birth and has shaped her entire life. Kris Rose was born with clubfoot and no fully formed heels. She underwent multiple surgeries as a child, only to later develop juvenile arthritis in her hands and feet. Her life has been a series of medical challenges, trials, and triumphs. After years of surgery, treatments, and persistent pain, she made a life-changing decision to have her leg amputated below the knee. She has never looked back since. Chrissy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
So good to have you. And, you've been through so much. We talked a couple of weeks ago and you were telling me that you've got, you're born with a clubfoot and, your heels didn't properly form as a child. You had all kinds of surgeries as a child, just treatment after surgery, after persistent pain. It all led up to an amputation, and it's a below the knee amputation, correct? On the right or left knee?
Left. It's my left leg.
Yeah, your left leg. So below the knee. Okay. Well, let's get started, and we'll just kind of start from the beginning. You were born with a club foot, is what they call it, and your heels weren't fully formed, I guess you were saying.
Right.
You remember those early surgeries and what it was like? How old were you?
Okay, so I had my first two surgeries before the age of 9 months. I had my cast changed every 10 days for the first 9 months of my life.
You didn't start life on the best footing.
No, and my mom loves to tell the story. She went through a snowstorm on December 13th, 1968 to get me my first pair of shoes.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I remember bits and pieces. I do know that I had surgery at the age of 2 on both feet, and that I screamed because I couldn't get my feet comfortable enough. So for like the first 2 weeks, I screamed my head off.
Oh, that's not a good childhood memory.
No, and I remember bits and pieces of later surgeries. I had 2 before 9 months, 1 at 2, 1 at a couple of days before I turned 5, 1 at 9, and then 1 at 15. So like the one that's, I think it was 9. I remember being in a room with some other kids that were also going to be having surgery. I remember walking around and talking to them. When just before I turned 5, I remember somebody getting in the elevator that had a really huge Mickey Mouse kind of costume on. Kind of scared me a little bit.
Yeah.
And I do remember my diet back then was applesauce, cottage cheese, and 7-Up. That was it.
Oh, not fun as a child. And it's funny you say that about the costumes. My wife, if she comes near like one of those mascot sorted, she runs the other way. Like if she runs into Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck or whatever, she just runs away. She can't handle that at all. But so then fast forward to your age 15, you're diagnosed with like juvenile arthritis and both in your hands and feet. And what's that like as a teenager? And, how did that diagnosis impact your life at that point?
Well, unfortunately, my doctor didn't tell me exactly what kind of arthritis I had.
Okay.
It really, my feet weren't as bad as my hands were, it turns out. So, it was kind of like, okay, I figured it was part and parcel of, being born with clubfoot and everything. And it really didn't impact me too much, although, I was bullied my entire school experience. So
Yeah.
it was just kind of another thing for kids to be like, ha ha, you've got this wrong, you know? And it really didn't affect me. It affected me on and off. When I was 17, my arch fell in my left foot. So it kind of pushed my knee. My arch was going off to the the inside, and my knee was going to the left. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the biggest thing. I went into physical therapy for it, and then I got pregnant with my oldest son at 18. So I had to stop that. But I mean, kind of on and off over the years, it's bothered me, and then it stops, and then, depending on what I'm doing, if I'm doing a whole lot, then it would act up. But it didn't really start getting really, really bad until I was in my late 40s.
So horrible, eh? To be bullied over something that you can't control. It's part of you, and kids are so mean sometimes.
Yes, they are. They're brutal.
Yeah. So how are your hands now? Are they still you still have
Right.
a lot of arthritis?
Oh yeah, right now actually they hurt. They're really swollen this morning. And
They're-
they normally act up in the heat. So my body tends to swell, my arthritis acts up when it gets really super hot, and of course I live in Arizona. Which
Yeah.
is not the smartest thing. But right now we've had some really wacky weather. Yesterday was a really bad snowstorm. Not here, luckily, where I'm at, but
Okay.
up northern by Flagstaff.
Yeah.
So my hands, I woke up this morning and both of my hands they're swollen, they hurt, and I'm like, "Urgh."
Yeah.
Just, another thing. But I've had arthritis in them for 42 years now. So
Yeah. You kind of live with it, right? And uh,
yeah,
uh, you
luckily
get
for
yeah.
luckily for me, I don't really have it in my right foot. It was like all in my left.
Yeah. Uh,
So
you guys don't know what snow is, by the way.
I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I know what snow
Oh, okay.
is.
You know what snow is, but not in
Yes, I
Arizona.
do.
Yeah.
No, not in Arizona, but I mean, Flagstaff gets a really good amount, like 126 inches a year or something like that. They haven't gotten squat. So
Oh yeah. Okay. So so you're 15, that all happens, but fast forward to 2015, you're at your
Mhm.
son's wedding, my understanding, and your feet, your legs just give out or something's wrong, right? And
Well, I was running around. I was on my feet from like 7 o'clock in the morning. I
yeah,
had to take
typical
my
wedding, right?
grandson and his class to an art museum with his school. And then I came back, got ready for the wedding, and was on my feet for about 15 hours.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew kind of in the back of my mind, even though I was trying to, oh, there's my mom, there's my granddaughter. So I was trying to really just distract myself from the pain, although it really just it was kind of saying, hi, how are you? And then when I got back from the wedding up in Spokane, that's when I had time to like, okay, I'm back. I can calm down. I'm not visiting family.
Yeah.
And that's when it really,
You
started
knew,
to
you
hit.
knew something was wrong, right? In fact,
Yeah. I knew it.
you're at a few weeks, sorry, 3 weeks later, both your feet actually give out, and you're at your
Yep.
son's. No, you were at your son's wedding at that point, or
No, it was after my
it was
son's
after
wedding. It
your
was
son's
three
wedding.
weeks
Yeah,
after.
sorry,
Yeah.
and yeah, and
Yeah. And
at that point, yeah,
when
sorry,
I got back to Spokane, I told my ex-mother-in-law, hey, I want to walk as much as possible because I know my feet are going.
yeah,
So, like, I would walk down to my doctor's office, which was about 4 blocks away from our house. I'd walk down to the store. She'd always be like, "Hey, I'll give you a ride." No, let me walk because it's not gonna be much longer. And I was right. So I woke up at 3 weeks. My left foot felt like it was sprained. I figured I had. Um, so I went to my doctor's. Turns out I had a past Liz Frank fracture, which is the top of your foot,
Okay.
that I never knew about. I don't know exactly when it happened. My right foot still hurt, wasn't as bad as my left. He sent me in for x-rays. He sent me to a podiatrist. And that's when things really started getting bad because this podiatrist gave me 2 cortisone shots.
Right. And why did that make things really bad? Like the cortisone shots hurt or what?
Two, 2 year, not to mention it hurt, but 2 years after I had the cortisone shots, I developed osteonecrosis from them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So what happened was he didn't really know what to do. So he um referred me to another podiatrist, a friend of his, and she said, "Would you like a wheelchair?" I
Yeah.
said, "Sure, why not?" I already had a walker by that point.
Right.
And the other doctor had put me in casts for 3 weeks at a time, trying to get the pain to go away. He put me in casts on both feet, regular casts, fiberglass casts, and that didn't help. So when I got to the other podiatrist, she went ahead and she had talked to an orthopedic surgeon, and she said, "Look, you've got 2 choices. You can either be in air casts on both feet in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, or you can have a triple fusion done on your foot."
Yeah.
Now I, like an idiot, I did not do any research on it.
Hey, Chris, can we back up what you said? An air cast? Is that what you said?
Yeah, a cam boot is pretty
Oh,
much what it is. It's
okay.
just a boot with you're able to pump air into it to
Uh,
make it like tighter or.
yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, sorry. Um,
No, that's okay.
so what was it like to kind of lose your mobility there and you're stuck in a wheelchair now? What was that feeling like?
um I was in my wheelchair when we went out. Sometimes I took my walker, but
Yeah.
it would really limit what I was able to do if I was going grocery shopping, if I was going to a thrift store or something. 5 minutes into it, I'd be like, "Hey, I gotta go sit down."
Yeah.
And luckily, my ex-mother-in-law had worked as a orthopedic nurse for 30 years. So she knew what, that I was in a lot of pain and everything. And so she's like, "Hey, I'll just do my shopping, whatever."
Right.
But I was getting to the point where I didn't want to be a burden on anybody. So that's why I chose to have the fusion done.
Yeah.
I saw my foot straight for the first time in my life. I thought, cool, wow, look at this. My foot is straight.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Right. And unfortunately for me, it never really got better.
Hmm.
It got to the point where I could walk on it and everything, but then the more I was walking on it, the more the pain came back. So my doctor um, went ahead and got me in there, and he said, "All right, so what we're going to do, because your foot's not getting worse, is we're going to do a total ankle replacement on you."
Yeah.
Now,
That was in
we're going to
2015.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
going to wait a few months, so don't do anything to your ankle. Jinx. So within 5 months is when the osteonecrosis showed up. And between that and my arthritis, it shattered my talus
What was
completely.
what was the goal of the ankle fusion? Like, what was the purpose of that?
To see if keeping my foot straight would actually help with the pain.
I see.
To see it just would make it better, because I'd never had my foot straight before. So once he discovered, and he actually didn't discover the osteonecrosis until he really got in there with the surgery, although the x-rays showed that my talus had shattered. So when he went in for the ankle replacement, he saw the extent of it, and saw that it was osteonecrosis, did what he could, drilled some holes so that my talus would get some blood to it. Because, osteonecrosis means that your bones are dying from lack of blood.
Right.
And so he went in and he did that, and he did, the ankle replacement, and all was good. And that was October 2017. I went through 5 weeks this time of non-weight bearing. And then I started walking on it. He gave me the okay at the end of January 2018. That, he said, "Hey, I'll see you in a year." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I'm moving." So a couple of weeks after that, I moved from Spokane down to Phoenix with my oldest son.
Okay.
And I was visiting family, seeing my kids that I hadn't seen, grandkids, my mom over in Lake Havasu, constantly on my feet,
Yeah.
and then things got really bad.
Yeah.
If you,
Yeah.
yeah, if you didn't think things could get any worse, they did.
Yeah. In fact, a few months later, after your total ankle replacement, the implant that you had shifted, right? And in your ankle and
Well, what happened was that it came loose.
came
The
loose.
thing is, though, the doctor that I was going to, who was another podiatrist down here in Phoenix, nothing was showing up on the x-rays. It showed that my implant was fine on the x-rays. So we tried orthotic inserts. We tried new shoes. We tried, he told me to stay off of it as much as I could. And it just, nothing worked. And finally, after a year, he said, "Well, the only thing left is steroids." And he goes, "And you can't take those, because that would have really, if he would have given me any type of steroids, it would have gone right to my talus." So he said, "We can't do that." He says, "I'm going to send you to an orthopedic surgeon." And I was like, finally.
Right.
Because I didn't want, he was so sure that he was going to be able to fix it, that I didn't want to complain and whine and say, "Look, dude, you're a bad doctor." I didn't want to say that to him. I was hoping he was going to be able to fix it.
Well, he's doing his
And
best, right? And you've lived through this through all your life, and you must be getting fed up by now, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
When he couldn't fix it, and I had been told by my doctor up in Spokane, who did my surgery, he said, "Look, if it doesn't work, then amputation is your next step."
Yeah.
So
How'd you
when
feel?
he sent me to the surgeon, I actually did a lot of research.
Yeah. How'd you feel when they told you that amputation was the next option?
When my doctor in Spokane told me that, I was like, I was like, okay, but it never really hit me.
Yeah.
When I went in to Dr. Holmes, the orthopedic surgeon, when I first saw him, I told him what Dr. Dow had said, and he's like, "Let's not jump the gun. Let's get you in for a bone scan / CT scan first,
Yeah.
and then we'll go from there." I said, "Okay." Never had a bone scan before.
Right.
Ooh, I got to actually watch it being done. So what they do is they lie you on the table, and then they have a screen, which is pitch black. And then the areas that are affected will light up like little pinpricks.
Yeah.
Mine lit up like the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Cellar,
Oh, wow.
Center, at Christmas time. It was bad. It was really bad. My right foot showed a few spots, not anywhere close to my left.
Yeah, your left was the worst. Yeah.
And so the CT actually showed that my implant was loose and my talus had completely collapsed.
Right. The painful. Um,
Um, Painful isn't even, that's such an understatement.
yeah. So instead of any kind of like risky ankle replacement or anything like that, it's time for an amputation, and you didn't really make the decision, did you? Or the doctor made the decision?
I made it.
You made it.
I had joined a bunch of groups on Facebook. I had done a ton of research, talked to a bunch of amputees, watched videos before I actually got the results of my bone scan because I wanted to be prepared because I knew something was really wrong.
Right.
And this is exactly what my doctor said to me, and I quote, "Well, this might be my ego talking." And I was like, oh, crap. He says, "Now we can try to do another replacement, another fusion, but they're not going to last.
Yeah.
They're going to maybe last a year or two, and you're going to be right back needing an amputation." And I said, "Nope, you are not putting me through that.
Yeah.
Let's do it." And he says, "Well, I personally don't do them. So I'm going to refer you." This was fun. "I'm going to refer you to a knee doctor because it's below the knee."
Yeah.
I was like, what? So I go into this knee doctor, and this guy was trying to, he says, "Now look," he says, "I treat all of my all my patients like family. So we're going to do everything possible to save your ankle." And I said, "Oh,
That's what you want
no,
to
you're
hear,
not."
right?
He
That's what
says,
you
"Well,
want to hear.
yeah." And he says, "Well, I don't do amputations." He says, "So I'm going to refer you to a colleague of mine." I'm like, fine, whatever. So I get in with this new doctor who's an orthopedic surgeon, foot and ankle.
Yeah.
And I took off my shoe and my sock. And the second he touched my foot, I started bawling. It hurt so bad. And so he was like, "Okay, check this out." And I had to do pain management for my insurance, which was just, I understand the insurance company wants to make sure that you jump through all the hoops, make sure that you're not just rushing into it. I get that, but I was mad.
Well,
I
you
was
would be.
really, really mad.
Yeah. You would be. You expect the insurance company to be there when you need them, right? And yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's a common story, right? That people hear about this, that just to get a wheelchair approved through your insurance is really challenging. Listen, before the amputation, you took a time to prepare your home, you told me, and you bought grab bars and an e-scooter and some other equipment that you had to pick up. How important was that in making that accessible prior to you getting home?
Well, because I'd already been through so much surgery, I kind of knew what to expect.
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't going to really be able to get around, so I made sure I bought a new mattress. I bought a lamp that I didn't have to get up and use the light switch for. All I had to do was tap it to turn it off. Grab bars for my shower. I bought some Ace bandages. I bought, clothes that were really,
You get on and
like wide bottom pants that I could wear, pajamas, because I knew I wasn't going to be going anywhere except for the doctor. My knee scooter, which I had used when I had my fusion and my total ankle replacement surgery, so I knew how to use one of those, really, really well,
yeah,
and it made it so much easier for me. Um,
yeah,
I still had help. My grandkids, because my son worked a lot. So I had my 17-year-old grandson and my other grandson who was, I think, 15 at the time. Um, he they really helped. Hey, can you take my dog out? Can you
yeah.
take my trash out for me? Can you make me something to eat? And so the first few days were just me all about getting adjusted. Although I had been to rehab, I was in the hospital for 4 days, and then they sent me to rehab for 15.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Which,
yeah. So really important, a couple things that you said there, how important it was to have that support system. So you're very lucky to have that. But one of the things I found coming home from the hospital was how hard it really was to get around. I underestimated that, it wasn't as easy as I anticipated. And so
Mhm.
have to think things through all the time. Within 3 months, you were up and walking though, right?
Yeah. Now, what had happened was that, I was recovering nicely. I myself took care of my incision, which I found a lot of people can't do that. They have to wait for their doctor.
Yeah,
Um, because of my past surgeries and stuff, they left it to me. So I cleaned my incision every day, rewrapped it and everything. Um, and when they took the stitches and staples out, they put what are called steri strips on
right.
them.
Yeah.
Um, and I had them all around my incision. Well, turns out that I am allergic to the adhesive
Oh,
that they put on to keep the steri strips on, which we didn't know.
right, right.
And so I had about a 6 centimeter area on the front of my incision go bad. It started to turn white. It wasn't infected, but it was getting there.
Yeah.
So my doctor went in, outpatient surgery, cleaned up that area, got all of that tissue out, restitched me up, and I was good to go. And then after that, I was fine. So I probably could have gotten into a prosthetic a little bit sooner, but we had to wait for me to recover from that. So on December 5th, 2019, I took my very first steps in a prosthesis.
That
My
must have felt
son
good.
took video,
Yeah,
so I still have it.
yeah.
Um, and it was a hydraulic foot. It was a Quintera. It was a Freedom Quintera hydraulic foot
Isn't that
that they put me in.
incredible feeling when you've been sitting in a wheelchair or bedridden, and then all of a sudden you're walking again? You think, "Wow, that's such a great feeling." I'm telling you. And
And I
people that haven't had an amputation probably can't relate to that because they take it for granted now, right?
Right, and I have had to relearn how to walk so many times in my life from surgery. So, um, it was a weird feeling. It was really just it was kind of like
Yeah.
what? Um, but it felt more like a cast beam on my foot. I could still feel my foot. It didn't hurt, but it was like I was wearing a cast. And even now, 5.5 years later, when I wear my leg like I'm wearing right now, it just feels like I have a cast on it. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
like
Well,
I'm wearing, something like foreign on it because I'd had so many. But
well, when you talk about that, a lot of people with amputations feel this phantom pain that they talk about. Do you get phantom pain? Is that what you're talking about here?
I I very rarely get phantom pain.
Oh, you're lucky.
When I first had my surgery, of course, my leg was mad. So, it was more the pain of they had to cut the bones and they had to cut the tendons and ligaments and all of that stuff. So my leg was mad at me. When I did start having phantom pain, it was really weird because it would only hit one area at a time. So sometimes it would be just my talus, not the rest of my foot. It would be just my talus for a bit. Sometimes it would be my big toe, because I had surgery on that too. They had to straighten my toes, but it wouldn't hurt my talus. Sometimes it would be the outside of my foot. Sometimes it would be the inside of my foot.
Yeah.
And it was really annoying.
Yeah.
But it was, luckily for me, it wasn't, like all over, because if it would have been all over, I would have really had a really rough time with it.
Yeah, people describe to me that they're in pain, and they say, "Do you get phantom pain, Kevin?" And I don't know that I would describe it as pain. It's just irritating. It's sore. I don't find it overly painful. It just kind of, I don't know. It's just kind of bugs you. But what fascinates me about the brain and how we interpret our limb loss is that we can look at our foot that's no longer there. We're looking at our prosthetic, but we can feel our foot and we can feel pain in our foot. But it just doesn't make sense to me how that happens and how the brain works. Part of all this pain that you were experiencing, not phantom pain, but regular pain over all those years, you finally get the amputation, right?
Mm-mm.
And it was unbearable pain before that. What was it like afterwards? Like, was it a big relief that you got like you had the amputation? Were you glad you had it?
I was. And then, of course, you have your adjustment period of trying to figure, out how to move and everything. But yeah, when, uh, when I had my amputation, I had stopped sleeping and I cried all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally, it just was so horrific. The swelling, I look back on pictures because I wanted to make sure that I kept journal of this journey. I can look at my foot and just cry and just go, wow. The x-ray that I actually have of after its collapse, which it finally showed up a couple of months before my amputation, will make me bawl my eyes out, because I remember, and it's like, wow, it was really bad. So there was this relief that was, okay, I understand that my leg is mad at me. And I'll tell you something, that one thing that they don't tell you about, not just phantom pain, but you have phantom sensation, which is you being able to feel your foot without the pain,
Yeah.
which I have every day. Phantom itching.
I haven't heard that.
When I woke up from my surgery,
Yeah.
the second I opened my eyes, my toes itched.
Really? Wow, that's
And
fascinating.
it was so bizarre. And I was like, what on earth? So my oldest son was over in a chair. He was playing on his Switch. I opened my eyes and I said, WTF? I said, dude, my toes itch. And he goes, oh, you're awake. And I'm like, but my toes itch and they're not there and I don't know what to do. And
Yeah.
so that was really weird. It was really weird. Another thing they don't tell you is that when you have a below the knee amputation, when you try to sleep on your side, your leg doesn't go all the way down. I don't know if that happened for you.
It does.
I'm a side sleeper.
Yeah.
So when I got home and I would start sleeping on my side, I had to put a pillow in between my legs because I couldn't get my leg to go fully down.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was it
Mine,
was you know it
mine,
was weird.
I sleep on my stomach a lot of the time. I know I'm weird that way, but anyway, my legs will bend automatically and I can't control them. I can't get them to stay down. So
Hmm.
I think we're talking about the same thing there. I know exactly how you feel. Yeah.
Yeah, little things that they don't tell you. Now, I mean, luckily I had support through all these groups and everything, but still, you don't get to learn every single thing by
Yeah.
asking. Sometimes it's trial and error. When I got my first leg, which was a pin lock, um I had a horrific time with it. Nobody taught me. I mean, my leg guy kind of said, "Hey, this is what you do," but nobody gave me any pointers on how to get the pin lined up so it would go in the hole. And
Right.
I would cry and cry and cry, and I hated it.
Yeah.
My leg shrank so fast that I needed a new leg within 10 days.
Wow. I
Yep.
I have the opposite problem. I have my because I have diabetes, I hold fluid in
Hmm.
me and
Hmm.
things will swell. And the other day I was trying to get out of bed and put my prosthetics on and my legs wouldn't fit in. So I panicked. I'm like, how the hell am I going to get out of this bed?
And that's when actually what you should do, and I don't know if you do this or not, you should wear do you still have a shrinker?
I do, and that's exactly what my doctor told me yesterday. I was down at
Yep.
Sunnybrook yesterday at my rehab center, and she says, "Well, you're not wearing your shrinker," and I said, "Yeah, you're right. I guess I'm supposed to wear that." So,
Yeah, it really, really helps with the edema. 5.5 years later, every once in a while, I'll put one on and it'll be like, oh, okay, this is cool, just to help out. But the atrophy in your legs, I mean, it's a weird thing to watch your leg go from like being super swollen because your legs are super, super swollen when you have your surgery, um, to this shrinking because you're not using the muscles or anything on it.
right.
And, some people, I'm on leg 7. Some people have had way more. Some people have had way less. Um, Part of that is due to insurance,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because if you have Medicare, not Medicaid like I have, but if you have Medicare, you have to pay out of pocket.
Is that right? And they're
Um,
expensive.
you you have to make your minimum. I forgot exactly what it's called, but you have to, okay, so your premium. So you have to make sure that your premium is paid before they'll even consider covering something. And then they only cover like 80% of what your leg is going to cost. And a leg can cost anywhere from 15,000 all the way up to 150,000 plus.
Yeah, absolutely. In Canada here, where I'm from, it's similar to that. We have a program called ADP, which is government funding, and
Hmm.
they cover up to 75% of your prosthetic. But then, there's other programs like the War Amps you can go to, and of course, your insurance can cover it. So you do have to pay out of pocket some, but it's not a lot. And we typically get them every 3 years covered like that.
Yeah, see, I'm lucky. I am on disability here in the States. I've been on it for 10 years now. I actually, for anybody listening, if you have arthritis in your feet or anywhere else, actually, that really hampers your daily life,
Yeah, it's pain.
Social Security recognizes arthritis, and fibromyalgia as disabilities.
Yeah, and they are really, already.
Yeah, and I got my Social Security for both.
Yeah.
But I'm on Medicaid through the state because of my SSI, and everything is covered. I have been really, really lucky. All of my supplies, my sockets and everything. I probably have almost $100,000 worth of legs in my closet alone. My current leg cost about 15. And I am trying out a new foot right now, which I'm keeping, whether they like it or not. I am keeping this foot because it's different. It's awesome. It's
like
great.
It? Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
What makes it different? Is it move or what?
Okay, so what makes it different is that a normal foot, I would say probably 99% of the feet out on the market right now go all the way down. So they have, where they have it like a split toe or whatever. It goes all the way down to where your toes would be.
Right.
This one doesn't. This one is a lot smaller.
Oh.
Let me see. I'm gonna pull up a picture. It's just like the coolest thing I have ever seen in my life. And what that does, because it's smaller, is it bounces more. It doesn't go all the way down to the toes on the foot shell. So the foot shell is actually able to bend.
Right.
It is actually, it's the coolest thing ever. Can you see that?
Oh, yes. The people on the call.
That is called the Avanto from Autobach.
Okay.
And I love it. Autobot. And I tried it out because I'm still recovering from having my surgery on my right foot. And I needed something that would help to distribute the weight better. We live off grid, out in the middle of nowhere. A 40-acre parcel that's part of a 35,000-acre ranch.
Wow.
And
huge.
Everything is a lot of the property is uneven. Right. So I needed something to be able to make sure that I could walk around comfortably. And so I looked it up. This foot just came out last year.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to try it because it was really different. And I can jog in place. I can actually stand there and jog in place with this foot.
Oh, that's incredible. I know.
I haven't tried to run because our weather has been really crappy out here, but I love it. And I was supposed to actually go see my leg guy yesterday, but there was a really bad storm up in Flagstaff. So I'm like, I'm not going to try to get caught up there. Are you nuts?
Don't blame you.
So next week, day before my birthday, I'm going in and I actually left a message for him yesterday. I talked to the receptionist and said, you tell him I want this foot.
Yeah,
I want this foot.
I mentioned to my prosthesis that, listen, she's like, what's your goals? And I said, well, really nice to walk again. That's obvious. But I said, the second thing is I'd like to get back out on the golf course because I golf a lot. And she upgraded my feet so that I can nice. So that I can stand on uneven grass and I can swing the club. So I'm not there yet, but the golf season's coming up here in Ontario, and looking forward to getting out on the course and seeing if I can do it or not. What are your goals?
And that's another thing is K levels.
Yeah.
So they upgraded you from a 2 to a 3?
I think so. I don't know much about it, to be honest with you. I just kind of left it up to her, but she told me that they're upgraded specifically for golf.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. My goal is just to be, I want to someday, I mean, even though I'm kind of getting up there, I'll be 57 next week. to be able to maybe go for long walks, go to a different city and walk around, be able to, kind of be where I was at before, and maybe not quite as active, but be more active than I am now, to be able to explore things, to, just kind of have somewhat of a normal life.
Yeah.
And, I never do golf or anything. I'm really bad. I knew mini golf. That's about it.
Well, that's fun
But,
too.
I want to be able to go to concerts. I want to be able to, I go to a horror convention every year. I
Oh, yeah.
want to be able to go to one of those and really be able to walk and not have to go, okay, I have to bring my walker with me, or I have to rent a scooter or bring a wheelchair or something like that. I want to be able to just walk,
Well,
you know.
it doesn't seem like you're asking for that much, or both of us aren't asking for that much. It's
Right.
just really hard, Kris. It's like I had no idea that losing your legs would be as hard as it is, but it takes a lot of muscle, takes a lot of endurance, yeah, and a lot of rehabilitation. So don't beat yourself up if you can't do it. Anyone on the call, just keep plugging forward, and you'll get
Yep.
there. Yeah,
Yep. And you don't give up, because if you give up, then you're never going to find out if you can actually do it or not.
yeah. Hey, Chrissy, really good talking with you. Is there anything, that you'd like to leave the audience with today that we haven't talked about?
Advocate for yourself.
Yeah,
Please advocate for yourself. Do your research. Ask the doctor, how many amputations have you done? How many of them had complications? How many were successful? Um, Talk to people. I am actually, and I will show you, I am, you can kind of see it. I am a certified peer visitor for the Amputee Coalition,
right.
which means that I am on my phone every single day. I'm in a total ankle replacement group. I'm in an ankle fusion group, ankle arthritis. I look for people who are just fed up. Some have been told that they need to have an amputation. I'm in a lot of amputee groups, and I offer support. I answer questions, because that's so very important.
Well, it's really
Even if it's
important. It's really important because nobody knows who to turn to, right? And they
right.
talk to people
Uh,
that have been through it. So,
and if you make a post in a group, say if you're in an ankle fusion group, and you bring up amputation, and you get 10 million people saying no, don't do it, blah 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 blah. If they're not an amputee themselves, they have
right.
no right to speak about it, and that really irritates me,
Yeah.
because amputation is a very scary word.
Well, I had a lot of friends tell me, Kev, you don't want to do an amputation. Don't want to do an amputation. I was trying to save my leg, and meanwhile they were taking more and more of my foot. And I kept going through that, and I was listening to my friends. Yeah, yeah, I probably don't want an amputation.
Mhm.
After my amputation, that was the best thing I ever did. I had no more pain. I could move on with my life. So you're right. You can't listen to other people. You've got to make your own decision. And sometimes the right decision is actually the amputation.
Yeah, exactly. And so it really hurts me when people, say bad stuff about it, and I'll jump on there and I'll be like, look, I'm an amputee, and it's the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
And so do a ton of research. Do not put yourself down. Do not, give up,
Right.
because if you give up, you never know what's going to be around the corner. And I realized how hard that is. When I found out I was having an amputation, I had a mini meltdown every single day for a month,
Right.
for
Yeah.
a whole month. Scared the hell out of me. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. My family didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. My son tells me he's proud of me all the time,
Yeah.
because I walk. Um, Try to have a support system, even if it's online.
Yeah.
Call the Amputee Coalition, 888-267-5669. Ask if for a peer visitor in your area. Ask questions. It just please don't give up. I know it's hard. Believe me, I've been dealing with this my entire life.
Yeah.
But it
And
really,
you really nailed it. I think it's all about connection and support, and that's what we're trying to do with Limb Loss Connection is connect people that have been through the experience so that we can all walk through this together and support one another because it's so important. Listen, Kris, we're kind of out of time, and I really have enjoyed our conversation. I hope we can do this again sometime.
that would be great. I'm always up for answering questions and talking about it.
Well, that's great. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing for other people with the coalition and being there to support other people. Thanks so much for your time today and your insight. And
Thanks for having me.
have a wonderful birthday.
Thank you so much.
Kris, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. Your resilience, honesty, and determination is inspiring. Your story reminds us all that while the road may be difficult, there is always a way forward. To our listeners, if you're faced with a tough medical decision, remember Kris's advice. Do your research, ask tough questions, and advocate for yourself. And if you're ever struggling with chronic pain or mobile issues, know that you're not alone, and there are solutions that can lead to a better quality of life. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to The Next Step and share this podcast with someone who might benefit from hearing it. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more inspiring stories from people in the limb loss and limb difference community. Thank you for joining us today, and as always, remember, every step forward, no matter how big or small, is a step worth celebrating. Take care, and we'll see you next time on The Next Step. Kris, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. Your resilience, honesty, and determination is inspiring. Your story reminds us all that while the road may be difficult, your story reminds us all that while the road may be difficult, there is always a way forward. To our listeners, if you're faced with a tough medical decision, remember Kris's advice. Do not research, ask tough questions. To our listeners, if you're facing a tough medical decision, remember Kris's advice. Do your research, ask tough questions, and advocate for yourself. And if you're struggling with chronic pain or mobile issues, know that you're not alone, and there is always solutions that can lead to a better quality of life. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to The Next Step and share this podcast with someone that might benefit from hearing it. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more inspiring stories from people with limb loss and limb difference. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more inspiring stories from people in the limb loss and limb difference community. Thank you for joining us today, and as always, remember every step forward, no matter how small or how big, is a step worth celebrating. Thank you for joining us today, and as always, remember every step forward, no matter how big or small, is a step worth celebrating. Take care, and we'll see you next time on The Next Step.